Hi everybody, welcome back to Flintlock Operator. I'm very excited to announce that this coming weekend I will be traveling to Martin Station at the Wilderness Road State Park and participating in an immersive living history event they have there. All the participants are expected to have their kit, their clothing, their gear in really good order because this event is an immersive event. So we're going to spend 3 days in the 18th century as close as possible. And the persona that I will be portraying is a scout or a spy. And thanks to the help of Anthony Weiniger, Nathan Kobach, and Simeon England, they have helped me develop the kit, the clothing, and the persona of a frontier scout and spy much more precisely than the general woodsman's costume that I typically wear for the channel. And that is what we're going to be going over today. I'm going to show you my clothing, my gear, my kit, how I'm packing everything for this event, because this is not a drive-up event, this is a walk-in event. The scenario is that there's a small group of travelers who have lost their horses and lost most of their baggage and are forced to walk the rest of the way to Martin Station to get help, to rest, recuperate, and maybe get some more supplies and more horses and some more men and help before we go through the Cumberland Gap. So let's go ahead and dive into my bags and how and why I'm carrying them. Obviously, no frontier persona is complete without the proper gun. I have my Kibler Colonial and 58 caliber right here. I've done my best to recreate the stain, the carving, and the finishing of this gun as closely as possible to what would have been typical back during the 18th century for a relatively common gun. It doesn't have a lot of embellishments on it, has some light carving. It's got a little bit more carving on the buttstock here on the cheek side. But other than that, it's relatively plain. But the finish of the wood and metal speaks for itself. If you'd like to see this gun more in depth, go ahead and check out our video on the first shots with this rifle. Let's go ahead and put the rifle aside right now. We want to keep this close by, within arm's reach at all times, just in case there are enemies around. Now let's take a look at the bags that I'm carrying. I've of course got my normal shooting pouch and powder horn, and of course no woodsman's kit is complete without your belt pouch, and I just have my normal slew of things in here. I have a lightweight fire starting kit, some cordage, a compass, an awl, some fish hooks, and some string and some line. So essentially my little repair kit, a little fishing kit, and I've got the basics of a fire kit in here as well. Of course, I have my axe with me that I carry in my belt, and I have my doubts as if they would have carried an axe this big on their person. This would normally be a piece of gear that you'd carry on a horse or in a cart or something like that. But since this situation is we've lost a lot of our stuff and our horses, I'm going ahead and carrying my axe with me. And as well, based on some of the experiences I've had in the past, like back in April when I fell in Jack's River and lost like half of my gear, it saved our bacon to have an axe with us so we could process large pieces of firewood. So I'm going to be bringing my axe with me. And of course, next we have my market wallet. And this market wallet is a little bit of a departure from how I've carried kit in the past. Normally I carry it in a knapsack or in a haversack, but carrying things in a market wallet like this would have been far more common. It's almost like the grocery bag of the 18th century, I think is what Anthony Weiniger called it. I've got the bulk of my food, my gear, and my water all in this market wallet. And it is a little bit weighty, but I actually find that I really like carrying the market wallet with the bedroll on the back. It's a very flexible way of carrying things. If you need to get into the market wallet, it's very easy, especially in light of if you want to get a knapsack off, you've got to take it off and unbuckle it. This, all you've got to do, swing it off your shoulder, and whatever you want to get inside is right there. So I really enjoy carrying the market wallet. I have carried this for miles and miles and miles. So we've got my market wallet, and there's one more thing that I'm carrying, and that is my bedroll. So let me pull that off and show it to you. Now here it is. Here's my bedroll. I have 2 Rob Stone wool blankets in here. I have one of his duffel blankets, and I have his next to largest size of English point trade blanket in here. So the duffel blanket is a little bit smaller and a little bit thinner than the English blanket. And with these 2 blankets, I have gone down basically below freezing with just these 2 blankets. Carrying 2 blankets like the axe can save your hide in a lot of situations. Like I mentioned earlier, the little bit of an emergency situation we had on Jack's River, Thomas and I were able to curl up in one of these blankets each, and we were able to stave off any vestiges of hyperthermia that would have been creeping into our bones. So that helped us. So having the wool blankets and having the axe helped us on that trip significantly. So that's why I like carrying 2 blankets, because it's going to be able to provide shelter. It's going to keep you warm in a lot of different environments. And it's pretty bulky, but it's not that heavy, even with the extra stuff I have in here, which we'll go ahead and show you right now. So let's go ahead and get into this bedroll. I tie my bedroll in a little bit different way from what I've seen other people tie. I'm not saying I'm the originator of this way of tying it. I'm sure I'm not. But this is how I do it. And when we roll it all back together, I'll show you how we roll it up. All right, so obviously it's a roll, so it unrolls and voila. What do we have here? We have our bedroll open now. And what we have here is essentially a full, complete change of clothes, starting with a pair of moccasins. Referencing the Jack's River trip again, I lost my only pair of moccasins down that river along with my leggings and my socks. So having an extra pair of dry clothes, especially moccasins, might save you and it will especially save your feet. So have at least one spare pair of moccasins, because if you get your primary pair super soaked, or it gets a hole in it, or something happens to it, they rip or they break, having an extra pair of moccasins is going to save your feet if you've got miles and miles to go yet before you can stop and dry or repair your primary set of moccasins. Now, next we have a pair of trousers. Back during the 18th century, I believe these would have been called overalls. They're just basic fall front linen canvas trousers from South Union Mills. I don't wear them a lot, but man, are they comfortable. They're really, really comfortable. They're really durable. They're really rugged. I highly recommend them. So if something happens to my leggings or I just get tired of wearing them, I can put the trousers on and be good to go. Next, we have my pair of wool stockings. I have never once been cold in these stockings. They're very, very good. I think these are from Apple Cart Creations. That pair of socks that I lost down Jack's River were also Apple Cart Creation socks, and they're really, really fantastic. I highly recommend them. They're made out of a very good quality wool. It holds heat extremely well, even if your feet and your legs get wet. These will eventually warm your feet back up, and they are so nice if they're dry to slip into at night if it's a little bit chilly. It's fairly warm right now and probably will be pretty warm at Martin Station, so the only upper garment I'm wearing is actually just my Lindsay Woolsey hunting shirt, but I'm obviously going to bring a shirt just in case. It's always good to have around. This stuff is kind of bulky, but it's not super heavy. So for a few extra pounds and a little bit more bulk, I can have a complete new change of clothing, and I can have some peace of mind about if I get these clothes wet or they tear or something happens to them, I can change into these clothes and still be completely period correct, be accurate, and be comfortable. We've got our spare clothes set aside, so let's go ahead and dig into our market wallet. Now, this is where the bulk of our kit and our gear and our food is. The first thing that we're going to pull out is our fire kit. Now this is the full-size fire kit. I have my lightweight fire kit in my belt pouch here, but in my primary fire kit, I have flint, tinder, a striking steel, and the tinder box is actually in a secondary leather pouch that has been impregnated with tallow. And the bag that contains everything has been oiled and waxed. So the idea is that even if this gets dunked in a river or I get caught in a rainstorm, there's something of my fire kit that will remain dry, and I can at least get a spark in my tinder and have a hope of getting a fire going so I can get warm and dry. So, fire kit. In this bag here, I have my contact kit. Now, I believe besides like keys and a couple other things, this will probably be the only modern thing that I have with me. And I have rather poor eyesight, so I need to take care of those. I need to be able to take my contacts out every night, but of course I'll do that discreetly and by the light of a candle in a corner somewhere. Next, we get into my flintlock maintenance kit. I've got a lot of stuff in here, and we're going to do a video about what exactly is in my flintlock maintenance kit. But I've got stuff to use as patching material, for cleaning material. I have a little bottle of bear grease in here. I have some extra lead, flints, leather for the jaws of the flint. I have a bullet mold in here. And of course, I have a couple different set of screwdrivers so I can disassemble a lock completely in the field. So Besides unbreaching the rifle, I have everything that I need right here to be able to take care of my gun. Now we just have a bunch of little odds and ends items. I have my cow's knee lock cover. If it rains, I'll throw this on the lock and then put the whole gun lock underneath my arm. That'll help keep everything dry. I've got spare deer skin for moccasin patching repairs. Another little piece of leather for just general repairs. This stuff is a lot more heavy duty, so if I wanted to like put a patch on the bottom of my moccasins that keeps wearing off, I might use this. I've got a bundle of fat wood. Obviously this is for fire starting, very, very useful. I also have a bunch of fat wood in here too. Scrap linen, spare linen for patching material if I want to make an extra bag, or cleaning for the gun. I've got it here. Spoon, very important. I've got some cordage. This stuff is actually tarred hemp, which would have been really common on boats and around the water. So this is something that would have been common. I've got 2 pieces of hemp rope here, and each of these are about 7 feet long. I have 2.5 beeswax candles. Actually, these 2 are beeswax and bear grease mixture. I have a sharpening stone, which this is something I need to replace because this is a modern Arkansas stone, and I don't think they would have had this type back during the 18th century. So this is something I do need to replace. But we'll bring it on this trip just because I need sharpening stone. We've got a little spool of waxed linen thread for general repairs, always useful. And at the bottom, we have 2 quarter-pound bars of lead. And if I'm going to be casting bullets, then I'll just cut some of these pieces off, put it in my lead ladle, let it melt, pour the lead into the mold, and then I'll have extra bullets. And that empties out one side of the market wallet. Let's go ahead and dive into the next side. Now, as far as food goes, we need to be very careful in choosing the food that we bring out to an event like this. Obviously, there's no modern refrigeration and no coolers back in 1775. So we have to choose food that is going to be shelf stable, at least for 3 or 4 days. So with those considerations, here's what I'm bringing. The first things I have in here is a bunch of apples. I absolutely love apples. And for the few days that we'll be out there, these apples are going to be just fine. Now, one thing I did make sure to do was wash them and remove the tags, because it would not do to be living in 1775 and suddenly see a modern barcode tag on an apple. So remove your apple tags if you're going to bring apples out. The next food that we have is salt pork. I've got about 2.5 pieces of salt pork in here that are about that long. And this is going to be more than enough, but I like having a little bit of extra just in case. Like I said, they will be feeding us, but I want to go prepared to be able to feed myself for the entire time. In this bag, I have 3 cups of blue cornmeal. I bought this stuff from a farmer's market a couple months ago and made some hoe cakes with it, and it was fantastic. Tastes really good, and it's going to be more accurate to the 18th century because this is made out of flint corn. Flint corn, according to the experts, is what they would have had on the 18th century frontier instead of something like modern sweet corn. So this is going to be, it not only tastes better, but it's also going to be better for us because it's a lot more nutritionally dense. Next, I've got my water bottle, which is replacing my canteen. I've had my Kidney Fort Ticonderoga kidney canteen for actually a decade now. I bought it in 2015. It served me really, really well. It is getting a little bit beat up. It's rusted on the inside. Yes, I have beeswaxed it, but the beeswax has fallen off, and the water's not great to drink out of. And to be honest, the canteen just doesn't taste good to drink out of anymore. So I bought one of these case bottles from Townsend's, and I haven't really used it yet. This is going to be my first trip to use this, but so far I really like it. It actually holds a little bit more than my canteen, but it has 2 downsides. Number one, it's glass, so it's a lot more fragile. And secondly, it's a lot heavier. But it is also very accurate to the period. These kind of case bottles would have been common all over the place. And from what I understand, it would have been far more common for civilians than carrying water in a canteen, especially for somebody like me who's not portraying a militiaman, right now at least, a militiaman or a soldier. I'm just a guy who scouts and spies out in the woods and lives out on the frontier and does all that kind of stuff. So case bottle for water, this is what I use. And what the case bottle is actually sitting in is my little copper kettle. This does have a lid, and based on a tip from Peter Kelly, he said he's got one similar to this, but he actually does not carry the lid with him whenever he goes on trips and treks, just to save a little bit of extra weight and a little bit of extra bulk. So I took that. So I took that cue from him and took the lid off. Going to leave the lid at home. But this is, I do not remember who made this. I got it about 4 years ago, and it's been really good. I've used it a good bit. It's a good kettle. It is made out of copper, but it's very thick and it's very sturdy. And even though it's thick and sturdy, it doesn't really weigh a whole lot. So this is what we're going to cook a lot of our food in, is my copper kettle, and it's going to hold my case bottle just like this. That way, if I happen to drop this on the ground or banging it up against something, my water bottle is nice and protected. I've got a little bag of salt for seasoning. Oh, and there's my last apple. 6 apples. Oh, the next to last thing I have in here is my little knit wool cap. I really wish I had had this back at the last time in Martin Station, because I didn't think it was going to get cold, but you know what? It did. So I'm going to be bringing this with me just in case it gets down into the low 50s or the 40s or even colder. I don't think it will, but for as little weight and bulk as this takes up, we're going to have this here in our market wallet. Now the last thing in here is an empty bag. Now, why is this bag empty, you might ask? Well, it's because what's going to go in here is currently being made. I've got some jerked meat that I'm currently working on right now back at the house, and it's going to go in here. And the jerked meat, which is essentially an 18th century version of beef jerky, that's going to be my mainstay for meat. So I'm going to have my salted pork, and I'm going to have my beef jerky in this bag. But whenever I go out there, this bag will be filled to bursting with jerked meat, and I'll munch on this all week and hopefully be happy and healthy. And of course, like we already went over, we've got my rifle, we've got my axe, and of course, no self-respecting frontiersman or scout would get caught without a tomahawk. So we have my Simeon England cast head tomahawk, which I really like as a weapon. It's very, very poor as a woodworking tool or wood processing tool, but as a weapon, it's quite formidable. And I do not have a sheath on it because it's not very sharp, but I don't think it needs to be sharp to do a lot of damage. So we've got my tomahawk, and lastly, we've got my normal French style butcher knife. And of course, everything that's in my belt pouch here. So here we have it. This is everything that I need and that I'm bringing for the Martin Station immersion event. To tell you the truth, I could actually get away with basically all of this for any type of a trek or period event. I've got everything I need as far as food for a few days. I've got plenty of clothes, plenty of supplies. I got my gun, my tomahawk, my axe. So I'm going to go in the forts and in the wilderness as well. Now, as far as the clothing goes that I'm going to be wearing during the immersive event, it's based on what an 18th century scout or spy would have been wearing. And a lot of times these clothes were a mix of Indian and white clothing. Back during the second half of the 18th century, there was a job on the frontier called a scout or a spy. And these men would go out and look for hostile Indians. The Shawnees, the Cherokees, the Miami were very displeased that the white man was out there on their hunting grounds and on their land. And the settlers needed men who were willing to go out and look for Indian sign, to look for Indian raiding parties. And that's how I am clothed. It's a mix of frontier wear as well as Indian dress, because back then camouflage did not necessarily mean blending in with the surrounding landscape. Camouflage on the frontier meant looking like somebody else, like an Indian. In fact, a lot of the frontiersmen, when they went out on raiding parties, would dress up identically to Indians. Daniel Boone utilized that tactic. Captain Sam Brady utilized that tactic. And George Rogers Clark utilized this type of camouflage. So I'm not dressed precisely like an Indian, but if I were to be seen off in the distance, I might be mistaken for one. I've got on a turban-style neckerchief around my head, Red would have been a very popular color. Again, it's not about blending into the landscape. It's about looking like somebody else. I've also got on blue wool leggings. Eventually, I'm going to be replacing these with deer skin. I've got red Stroud breech clout on, and I've got a pair of deerskin moccasins on my feet and red wool tape garters. And of course, I've got on my Lindsay Woolsey hunting shirt. Now, if I was going to go into the Indian Territory, let's say across the Ohio River, I would not wear a hunting shirt. But scouting around near forts and near the settlements and traveling around, wearing this hunting shirt is going to be just fine. I also have a handkerchief around my neck. It might look brown, but it's actually spotted with red. Both of these are fairly large, and if I needed them for patching material for my gun or cleaning, of course I could use it for that. Or if I really wanted to, I could even cut pieces off of this and conceivably use it for making char cloth for starting fires. So again, a lot of this stuff that I'm carrying around with me is very multi-purpose, very functional. So there you have it. These are the clothes and this is the persona that I will be wearing at the Martin Station Immersive event. All right, let's get all this packed back up. See, doesn't take hardly any time, much easier than a knapsack, and I'd argue even easier than a haversack. It also carries significantly more than a knapsack or a haversack. Let's go ahead and roll this bedroll up together so I can show you how I do it. So I've got my 2 blankets here, and we fold them into thirds. So not in half and not into fourths, but into thirds. And we've got my tump line here. And we take it, and put it underneath like this. We take the ends, get them oriented properly. Now, if you wanted to put more stuff in your bedroll, you definitely could, but from what I've found, if you want to get into it, it is a pain and a half to try and get into your bedroll. If you wanted to keep stuff dry, if you wanted to have an extra tinder bag in here, that's what I would highly recommend keeping in your bedroll. Obviously, I'm keeping my clothes in here, and I do want to keep those dry. And also, I found that this is just the best way to carry them. If you're not carrying as much gear in there, carrying clothes in your market wallet is also a good thing. But I've got too much gear to put them in there right now. So let's lay these out. Those towards the end. Now here's the fun part. I'm gonna flip that over, and looks like I'm gonna be bringing some of North Texas leaves with me. And we're just gonna start rolling. We wanna keep this roll as tight as possible. A loose bedroll is no good. It flops around. A little bit of slack there. And you just roll it. Now, one thing you might have noticed is that I don't have any really sturdy pieces of rope with me. That is because if I really needed a piece of rope, I would just use my tump line. And I believe that I have read somewhere of someone doing that. It might have been in the Crestwell Journal, I can't remember, but somewhere I've either heard or read that people would use their tump lines as ridge lines and as rope and stuff like that. This one's made out of leather and it's pretty strong. And most of the ones that I've seen are made out of some sort of natural cordage, and those will work good too. All right, now that we've got the entire bedroll rolled up in a Tootsie Roll style, here's what we're gonna do. First thing we wanna do is sandwich it between our legs so it does not come apart. Wrap the same way that I rolled, and this will go around once, twice, like this. Then I'm gonna come back around to this point here. Thread that back through, tighten it up, and then make a slip knot right there. I have never once had this come undone on me. Not after running, not after walking miles and miles. So this is the way that I do it. I'm not saying it's the right way, it's the best way, but this is the way that works for me. I've done some of the other ways where you've got more fancier knots and where you've got it kind of more secured throughout, a lot more half hitches and stuff, but that just takes so much longer to configure and put together. I like doing this. Again, there's probably no wrong way. This is just a preference. Cinch that down, make a half hitch in that, then you got it. So that's how I tie the bedroll. We've got all of our gear put back in its proper place, so let's go ahead and put it all on. I've got my axe, I'm sticking in my belt. I've got my tomahawk in the small on my back. I'll take my bedroll, sling it over my right shoulder. Take my market wallet, sling it over the left shoulder. Pick up my rifle, and now I'm ready to time travel back to 1775. So how much does all this weigh? Well, that's a really good question. It actually weighs right at 60 pounds for everything. Food, water, gear, gun, blankets, ammunition. If I was to carry powder and a little bit more lead and ammunition, that would bring up the weight to closer to 65 or even 70 pounds. And ironically, with that 60 to 75 pound weight range, that brings us into the average of what the historical infantryman carries as a base weight for their packs. So unfortunately, that 60 to 75 pound base weight is kind of inescapable. However, for me, from the testing that I have done, carrying that much weight in this configuration is more comfortable than any other way I have found for doing it in an 18th century manner. Carrying everything in a haversack is really cumbersome. Carrying everything in a bedroll is even more cumbersome. Carrying everything in a knapsack just weighs down your shoulders. But between how the tumble line distributes the weights across your shoulders and your chest, and how the market wallet distributes its weight over its wide size, makes this weight a lot more comfortable to carry than it would for me in a knapsack, a haversack, or a combination of all four of these systems. The other benefit to carrying everything in this way is if you need to ditch your gear, it's really easy. You can easily ditch your market wallet, and you can easily ditch your bedroll if you throw the strap over your head. If you need to fight, run, flee, anything like that, you can get rid of your gear really, really fast. Everyone, thank you so much for watching today. We really appreciate all the support, the views, the likes, the comments, and the subscriptions that you give here to Flintlock Operator. It's very encouraging and it helps us out a lot. I've got to tell you, there's been a lot of big changes with Flintlock Operator this year, and we're really set up to do a lot of really cool, really fantastic things over the course of the rest of this year and especially next year. I'm very happy to announce that now here at Flintlock Operator, we actually do have a small team working, and we're planning some really big things for next year, which is the 250th anniversary of 1776. So we're gonna have big things for the rest of this year and next year. I'm sorry I haven't been posting as much over the last couple months. Personal life has been very busy with work and trying to put some things together. But now with the Flintlock Operator team, we've got some extra hands and some extra heads to bring you more and more consistently entertaining and educational videos about the historical 18th century frontier, and as well videos in the future that will span the gap between modern bushcraft, modern infantry tactics, modern scouting tactics, and where it all started here on the 18th century frontier in the backcountry of Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and of course, Kentucky. Again, everyone, thank you so much for watching today. Thank you for your likes, your comments, your subscriptions. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook, and we'll see you on down the trail in the next video. Oh, and one more thing. I will not be videoing at Martin Station. However, we will have a video about the Martin Station immersive event. So stay tuned for that. That will be coming soon. Everyone, have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on down the trail in the next video. I've got to start walking to Martin Station. It's going to take a while.